Our next speaker is Chuck Baldwin, who probably needs no introduction here, but I'm going to give him one anyway. Chuck's the founder and pastor of Crossroad Baptist Church in Pensacola, Florida. He was our nominee for president in 2008 and our nominee for vice president in 2004, and served admirably in both cases, has done a tremendous amount for the advancement of the party, and have brought a lot of people into the party by virtue of his candidacy, especially in the one in 2008. During the 80s, as a member of the Republican Party, we'll forgive him for that, Baldwin is state chairman of the Florida Moral Majority. However, during George W. Bush's 2000 campaign, Baldwin left the party and began to point out why Bush was not acceptable to those with a constitutional perspective. Baldwin endorsed Congressman Ron Paul for the 2008 Republican nomination for president, and Paul in turn endorsed Baldwin for the presidency after he had ended his campaign. Chuck has written and spoken widely on such issues as getting U.S. out of the UN and repealing the income tax, abolishing the Fed, and repealing the USA Patriot Act. He has called for the withdrawal of troops from Iraq and Afghanistan, the ending of illegal immigration, and in all arenas emphasizes our country's Christian heritage. Chuck received his undergraduate degree from Midwestern Baptist College in Michigan. He graduated from Thomas Road Bible Institute and founded Crossroad Baptist Church in 1975, and has been a prolific writer on political topics. Chuck has authored several books, is frequent guest on radio and TV, and is widely quoted on topics related to Christianity and political issues. His weekly column can be read at News with Views, as well as many other newspapers and places around the country. Chuck and his wife, Connie, of 35 years, their 3 children and grandchildren live in Pensacola. Let's welcome Chuck Baldwin.
I really appreciate, Jim, you giving me this wonderful time spot right after lunch. I'm delighted to be here, no matter what time of day it is, to address the delegates and the representatives of the Constitution Party. It is my privilege and my pleasure to be here and to be among you, and to have been your candidate for Vice President and President has been a great honor, and I thank you for that opportunity. I seldom read from a prepared script when I speak. I most always speak extemporaneously. However, I want to begin my remarks this afternoon by reading excerpts from a column that I wrote just a few weeks ago. The date of this column is September 29th. For those of you that received the column and have already read it, you'll recognize it right away. The title of the column is U.S. to Break Up Soon, ? Let me read excerpts from this column. According to Macedonian Radio and Television Online, a Russian professor predicts the United States will fall apart in July 2010. Quote, Mr. Obama is similar to the last Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev. Gorbachev was also making great promises for the Soviet Union, but the situation was only getting worse, he said. By next summer, according to Professor Panarin, the U.S. will disintegrate into 6 blocks, and everyone will get their piece. The probability that the United States of America fall apart in July 2010 is more than 50%, said Igor Panarin, professor at Moscow's Diplomatic Academy within the Russian Federation's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, close quote. MRT went on to say, quote, Panarin came up with this grim forecast while analyzing the parallels between the Soviet Union in its final days and the current situation in the United States. Quote, American dream ballooned 7 times in 11 years. During the Gorbachev era, the Soviet dream ballooned 5 times. Americans hope President Barack Obama can work miracles, he wrote, But when spring comes, it will be clear that there are no miracles. The Drudge Report confirmed the MRT report and added, quote, Professor Igor Panarin said in an interview with the respected daily Investia, the dollar is not secured by anything. The country's foreign debt has grown like an avalanche, even though in the early 1980s there was no debt. By 1998, when I first made my prediction, it had exceeded $2 trillion. Now it is more than $11 trillion. This is a pyramid that can only collapse, close quote. At least some of what Panarin said back in the fall of 2008 either has already taken place or is in the process of taking place. Drudge reported, quote, when asked when the U.S. economy would collapse, Panarin said, quote, it is already collapsing. Due to the financial crisis, 3 of the largest and oldest 5 banks on Wall Street have already ceased to exist, and 2 are barely surviving. Their losses are the biggest in history. Now what we will see is a change in the regulatory system on a global financial scale. America will no longer be the world's financial regulator, close quote. Drudge continued reporting Panarin as saying that, quote, the U.S. will break up into 6 parts. The Pacific Coast with its growing Chinese population, the South with its Hispanics, Texas where independence movements are on the rise, the Atlantic Coast with its distinct and separate mentality, 5 of the poorer central states with their large Native American populations, and the northern states where the influence from Canada is strong, close quote. Panarin further suggested that Russia might even, quote, claim Alaska, close quote. Reporting on the same story, the Wall Street Journal said, quote, Professor Panarin, 50 years old, is not a fringe figure. A former KGB analyst, he is dean of the Russian Foreign Ministry's Academy for Future Diplomats. He is invited to Kremlin receptions, lectures, students, publishes books, and appears in the media as an expert on U.S.-Russian relations, close quote. The Wall Street Journal goes on to say that Panarin believes that, quote, mass immigration, economic decline, and moral degradation will trigger a civil war next fall and the collapse of the dollar, close quote. This is not the first time that Comrade Panarin has made such a prediction. Joseph Farah, editor of WorldNet Daily, noted in December of 2008 that Panarin has been making similar predictions for the past 10 years. In a column regarding Panarin's predictions, Farah wrote, quote, until recently, no one took him very seriously. And then came the economic calamity that has rocked Americans and the rest of the world, too. Now Panarin's predictions of the end of the United States due to economic and moral collapse is being taken very seriously by many, close quote.